After 5 years of dating, my fiancé told me he wasn't sure about marrying me. Then, in front of his friends, he joked, "If you were prettier, I'd marry you." This morning, his mom called me in tears. Dominic and I have been together just over 5 years, engaged for the past 8 months. We first met at a housewarming party through mutual friends, bonding over a shared dislike of IPAs and a love of 90s cartoons. Our relationship moved at a steady pace, dating for a year, moving in together after 2, adopting our cat Beans in year 3, and getting engaged last summer. The proposal wasn't flashy, just a Saturday hike to our favorite lookout point where he nervously pulled out a ring. I said yes right away. We set a wedding date for October and began planning. Well, mostly I planned, while Dominic agreed with whatever I suggested. About 3 months ago, Dominic's comments started to shift. He wasn't openly negative but seemed hesitant. When I showed him venues, he'd say things like, "That's a lot of money for one day," or "Do we really need that many guests?" I brushed it off as budget concerns. Soon, his replies to wedding-related texts grew delayed and short. "Looks fine," or "Whatever you want." When I asked if something was wrong, he blamed work. His construction company had big projects underway. It seemed reasonable. Then he began spending more time with his friend Paul, after-work beers, watching games. Nothing unusual at first, just more frequent. But when he came home, he was distracted, always checking his phone, less affectionate. I confided in my best friend, Lena. She thought it might just be pre-wedding nerves and suggested a date night. So last Friday, I booked a new Italian restaurant downtown, wore a nice dress, and even stocked the fridge with his favorite beer. The evening was a disaster. He was distant, barely speaking. When I brought up honeymoon plans, he admitted he wasn't sure about the wedding or marriage at all. I was shocked. 5 years together, 8 months engaged, and now doubts? He said Paul had been warning him that marriage changes everything, pointing to Paul's brother's messy divorce. I tried not to break down in the restaurant, but the ride home was silent. At the apartment, he claimed he needed space and slept on the couch. The next morning, he left to meet Paul and friends at a bar. I felt drained, so I met Lena for coffee and vented. She reminded me it might just be jitters. Later, while driving home, I got a text from Kyler, one of Dominic's coworkers. He asked if I was okay, saying things at the bar had gotten weird. When I called him, he hesitated, but eventually told me what happened. Apparently, Dominic's friends teased him about settling down. Paul asked if he was ready to be with one woman forever. Dominic admitted doubts about timing. Then, drunk, he said, "If she were prettier, I'd be more excited about marrying her." He laughed it off as a joke. Kyler and others called him out, but he brushed it off, saying they couldn't take a joke. I sat crying in my car for 20 minutes after hearing that. The man I thought loved me joked publicly that my looks were holding him back. When I got home, Dominic was passed out on the couch, reeking of beer. I took Beans into the bedroom and locked the door. The next morning, he made his apology breakfast, coffee and bacon. When I confronted him about Kyler's story, his face fell. He insisted he'd just been drunk and stupid, trying to shut down the teasing. His defense, guys being guys, only made it worse. We argued. He said he was stressed about costs and pressure, but I couldn't get past that he used me as the punchline. I packed a bag and went to my brother Elliot's place. He was furious, ready to confront Dominic, but I asked him not to. I just needed space. Dominic kept texting apologies, but I only responded once. I need time. On Monday, I called in sick to work. I couldn't face pretending everything was fine. Then Dominic's mom, Valerie, called. She sounded upset, saying Dominic had told her something important and she needed to speak with me in person. Now, I'm sitting in my car outside the coffee shop where we're supposed to meet, wondering what more there could possibly be to know. Is my 5-year relationship already over? I keep staring at my engagement ring, wondering, was I blind? Or did things really change this suddenly? Should I hear Valerie out? I had asked Dominic to be honest with me after the weekend, but clearly he hadn't kept that promise. What surprised me most was Karina's steady support. Even though she was Dominic's sister, she made it clear she was on my side. That brought huge relief. I had been worried about losing not just Dominic, but his entire family, who over the years had also become mine. Possibly say that would make this okay? Lena's apartment was exactly the escape I needed that night, a neutral space where I didn't have to explain myself. We ate takeout on her living room floor, surrounded by her school papers, while a baking competition played in the background. Neither of us really watched, but the ordinary normalcy felt like a lifeline. After she went to bed, I stayed up scrolling through photos on my phone. 5 years of memories with Dominic. Vacations, holidays, silly selfies, engagement pictures where we looked like we'd won the lottery. I started planning the next day, going back to the apartment while Dominic was at work, packing more of my things, maybe even talking to the landlord about ending our lease. Then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Margot, this is Maria. I know you blocked Dominic. Can we meet tomorrow? There's more to the story you should know. Just the two of us." I stared at the message, my heart racing. What more could there be? And why would she want to tell me directly? After several minutes that felt like an hour, I replied, "Where and when?" First, thank you all for the overwhelming support on my earlier posts. Reading your comments during sleepless nights has helped more than you know. For those asking how I'm doing, honestly, I'm surviving. Some moments are easier than others. The meeting with Maria happened, and it went nothing like I expected. We met at a small breakfast place near the park, neutral territory. She was already there when I arrived, nervously scrolling through her phone. She looked different than at the company party. Less polished, more real, her hair in a messy bun, minimal makeup. What struck me immediately was how uncomfortable she seemed. If she'd been having an emotional affair with Dominic, wouldn't she seem more confident? Instead, she fidgeted with her cup and avoided eye contact. The conversation revealed 2 major points. First, Maria had no idea Dominic had feelings for her until Paul casually mentioned it last week. She explained that she and Dominic had worked closely on a project and occasionally texted after hours, but only about work. She insisted she'd never crossed any lines, flirted, or encouraged anything beyond friendship. She showed me their text history. It was mostly work-related, with the occasional meme. She even had a boyfriend of 3 years, who often joined their group for happy hours. The second point was about Paul. According to Maria, he had been deliberately stirring things up. She overheard him at work encouraging Dominic to explore his options before settling down, even pointing to her as someone who understood him better than I did. Paul had also been telling coworkers that Dominic had cold feet, joking about him being trapped or losing his freedom. By the end of our meeting, I felt unexpectedly calm. Maria wasn't the villain I'd imagined. She was caught in Paul's manipulation and Dominic's weakness. Before leaving, she told me something that stayed with me. "You seem like someone who knows your worth. Don't let anyone make you question it." I left with a new perspective and a plan. This wasn't just about Dominic and me anymore. It was about Paul's toxic influence, Dominic's family history, and my place in all of it. I texted Karina, asking if she would help arrange a family meeting at her apartment. Neutral territory, since I wasn't ready to face Dominic alone. She agreed right away. That brings me to yesterday's dinner. Karina set everything up in her small but cozy apartment. She ordered pasta and salad from the Italian place near her building. Valerie arrived first, then Paul. Karina had insisted he come. And finally, Dominic, who looked like he hadn't slept in days. The first 20 minutes were painful. We sat around the table, making small talk about the weather and Karina's new coffee table, while avoiding the obvious. Finally, Valerie cut through the silence. We're not here for a social gathering. We need to address what's been happening and find a way forward. That opened the door. I shared what I had learned from Maria, watching Paul closely. His expression shifted from confusion to defensiveness. He tried to interrupt, claiming he was only looking out for Dominic, but Karina shut him down quickly. Dominic stayed mostly quiet, staring at his plate. When pressed, he admitted Maria had only ever been friendly, but he let it become more in his mind because he was afraid of turning into his father. Valerie flinched at that. When I raised the bar incident, Dominic admitted he'd made the joke to seem cool after Paul teased him about being whipped. He said it wasn't about my looks, it was cowardice. Paul tried to dismiss it all as guy talk, but Karina reminded everyone that Dominic and I were supposed to be married in 3 months. Hearing that out loud hit me hard. The save-the-dates sent, deposits paid, my dress hanging in Lena's closet. That's when I said quietly, I don't think the wedding is happening anymore. The room went silent. Dominic began to protest, but I cut him off. I explained that this wasn't just about Maria, the joke, or Paul's influence. It was about Dominic not being honest with me or himself. I admitted I had ignored signs for months, his lack of interest in planning, his time with Paul, his growing distance. I made excuses because it was easier than facing the truth. But I deserved someone who was sure about me, someone who didn't need a family meeting to realize it. Paul muttered something about me being dramatic, but both Karina and Valerie shut him down. Dominic insisted he loved me, just that he was scared. I reminded him he'd already caused the damage. The conversation stretched on for hours. Tears, harsh words, especially between Karina and Paul, and painful truths. Near midnight, we reached the unavoidable conclusion. The wedding was off. Our 5-year relationship had ended. It wasn't dramatic or explosive. It was a quiet recognition that something fundamental was broken, and it couldn't be fixed in time. Karina drove me back to Lena's afterward, assuring me I was still family to her and Valerie regardless of what happened with Dominic. Back at Lena's, I sat in the dark on the pull-out couch, letting it sink in. 5 years gone. Wedding canceled. Future uncertain. I didn't cry right away. I made a list instead. Cancel venue. Return ring. Notify guests. Move out. Change relationship status. Practical tasks for an emotional reality. At 2 a.m., Lena came out, half asleep, to check on me. When I told her it was over, she just sat beside me and put her arm around my shoulders. We stayed like that until sunrise, not saying much, just existing in the strangeness of my new reality.